We appreciate your presence here, my good man.
You bet. Thanks, Robert.
Hi, I'm Ted. A little bit about me. I'm a father of two, a biologist, and a complete and total narcissist. I love a big room. So my point is that, Robert, you may need to give me the hook, because once I have the baton, I'm not like...
Don't worry, buddy.
Okay. What I'm going to talk to you about today, actually, is a question that I get more from the shooting community than any others, and that is how to set up this scope camera that I'm doing. Many know the gear that I use, many go out and buy the gear, and many mount the gear to their rifle and they have problems. And I didn't ask for a show of hands, Steve, but Steve has problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the coarser points and the finer points and how I get this set up. And after tonight, you'll all be able to start your own successful YouTube airgun hunting channels. While I move along here, I'm a teacher kind of by trade. While I move along, I invite you to all, fire questions at me. If something doesn't make sense to you, there's a good chance it doesn't make sense to someone else on the other side of the room. So if you got something, if that didn't make sense, when you see my videos, they're all condensed down to about 6 minutes. But it takes me about 25 minutes to film them. And I got to cut out all the ums and does and looking at the skies. So unfortunately, you're going to be subjected to those. And it may not be as clear as the videos I present. So I welcome all questions as we move along here. The gun, I brought obviously some props. I chose a gun, whether it be in the interest of neutrality or antagonism, depending on how you look at it. It's a gun that is represented by none of the fine manufacturers in this room. This is the one that obviously put me on the map. It's the Gun Matador, but that's not the point. That's not what we're talking about here.
I think you put it on the map.
Maybe I did. I put this gun on the map. And what I'm going to talk to you about is how the whole system works together. And maybe I'll meander about the crowd if I don't trip on some legs or whatnot, and you can have a look at things. But I'm going to go through the basic steps of what I do, and then what I see as some very big problem points for other people, and the questions I get. It's all blurry, it's all fuzzy. The first step is the two pieces that are responsible for recording. Obviously, you got your camera and the scope mount. And if I was a more clever man, I would have bought about 20,000 of these, stamped my name on them, and made 20% on each one. But I wasn't. And I went and told the whole world about a company called Seven out of Germany. And they make them as well as a company called Orion makes them. Oh, by the way, if I hadn't mentioned it, a pen and pencil might be useful for this talk. So you got the Seven DKA2 or the Orion Steady Picks. Actually, the manufacturer of Seven actually invited me. Oh, by the way, the hammer's out, so all is well down there. Okay. Seven invited me to Germany 6 months after I put the first video on YouTube, because he said that his sales increased 550% since I made the video. Let's start with. Everyone asks, how do I show the good slow motion? What editing software do you use? The truth of the matter is, it's not accomplished with editing software. It's accomplished with the camera itself. You got to start with the camera that's capable of capturing more frames per second than your average camera. And the manufacturer that I choose for that, and others have entered the arena, that I have no experience with them yet, is Casio. The Casio XLM, EXILIM, high-speed cameras. They're all the same across the board. This is an older model here. The newer ones work just as well. I will say that Casio has not updated their firmware regarding how they capture. So don't go out rushing for the very best one you can find. The frames per second and the resolution is the same on these spanking new ones that cost $500 as an old clunker you can get on eBay. So don't go out rushing for the newest, latest, and greatest. The mount fixes to the scope itself. This is a Hawk Sidewinder, and it's one that I like a lot for very simple reasons that, besides being great scope, it also lends itself, for reasons I don't fully understand, to being very clear with my camera. It's a simple matter of the lenses agree with one another. Other scopes are great scopes. For instance, I put on a $2,000 Vortex just last month, and it was blurry. And that's just the nature of things. You can't really control that. The Hawk line, specifically the Sidewinder line, even more specifically the Sidewinder tactical line, seems to agree with these cameras, all Casio cameras really well. So if you're hesitant about exactly getting a whole system that works, and you got a Hawk scope, stick with that one for your video capture. This is an old model. This is the first one I had way back when. This is like a FC150. Model numbers aren't important because, like I said, it's all the same. But what is important is Ocular Relief, and that is basically you got to put the camera where your eye is. So, like your eye, the higher the magnification, the less forgiving the camera is. You crank it to 20x, to 24, it's going to be really tough to find that magic spot for the camera. You shoot at 6.5, 10x, man, it's just wide open. You can find anything. Now here's the most fun part. Everyone asks, how do you adjust for parallax? There is no parallax because the camera is in the exact same place every single time. So it doesn't matter if your parallax is adjusted or not. You can shoot it foggy. It's going to be in the same place. Because parallax is, obviously parallax error is caused by you not bringing your head to the same place each time. So there is no issues with parallax at all. So there's the one benefit of shooting through a scope cam versus your eye. Now, the things get tough when you mount it and you turn it on. Let me go ahead and flick it on here. And you see a lot of black or imperfect picture. You probably see this. I don't know. I'll walk around as much as I can. See just like a small light dot in there.
Yes.
Now what the issue is don't go trying to adjust it now because you're going to want to zoom this in. Don't go trying to adjust it front and back, trying to find the perfect spot. The first step you have is to zoom it. And when I zoom it, suddenly you have a clear picture in there. Now, granted, I set this up before I came here, but my point is that you should do all your fine adjustments after you zoom it. So zoom it into about, this one's at about 4x, 5x. This is a 0 to 7 x magnification. So some of these fancy cameras out there have like 15, 20, won't do you any good. They zoom literally too much to the point where you're like right on top of the crosshairs and you can't even see your target anymore. So zoom to about 4 or 5x, something like that. Now make your adjustments. Now here's the magic spot. Here's where everyone has the problem. We got blurry crosshairs in here. And if I hit record, we're recording blurry crosshairs. So everyone wants to know how on earth to get rid of them. Now the first error they make is they get their target downrange in good focus. That's not what you want to do. Obviously, it makes sense to want to get things in focus, and now they're having trouble because the crosshairs are blurry and their picture down range is focused. So here's what you do. You spin this sucker till it's horribly out of focus. If you're shooting at 50 yards, zing it to 10. So everything's completely out of focus downrange. If you're too lazy like me to want to touch this because you just got the parallax set, you got it snapped in perfectly. Now you don't want to touch this dang thing. You're like, so here's what you do. Point it at the ground. So now it's way too close. Then you leave the parallax in place. And while you're pointing at the ground, while the whole thing is fuzzy and out of focus, you hold down the shutter halfway. And upon holding it down, those crosshairs snap right into focus. Now your crosshairs are in focus. And once your crosshairs are in focus, you can then look at your target and dial your parallax till that's in focus.
What power is your scope?
This scope is a 6.5 to 20.
I mean, what is it on now?
It's on 10 right now. It is my, yeah, go ahead, Joe.
I was going to ask you, okay, so let's say you're setting it up for the first time.
Uh-huh.
Are you zooming in from when, okay, so you have two options. You could go to extremes from 3 to 9, say, you have on the camera.
Okay.
Do you zoom in until you just get the full view of the ocular lens in the back? And or the back lens of the telescope?
Yeah.
Scope?
No, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm done.
No, I got you. Well, yeah, what Joe's asking is how much do you zoom in with respect to the field of view? And what I usually do if I'm hunting, if it's hunting purposes, I take it till I see like kind of a circle perimetering the outside of it. This gives me the widest field of view for hunting. If I'm doing my video reviews, you'll see me take it a little bit further. I'll take it until I get about maybe 3 mil dots, something like that.
The further you focus then?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I can, if I have it right now, and I choose to go out, crosshairs usually stay pretty good. If they're not, point at the ground again, hold your shutter down again. Now your crosshairs are back in focus again for that given magnification on the camera.
So I'm guessing, would it be better to focus at high power where it'll be more, and then back out, and then it'll be focused at low power?
Yep.
Okay.
Always more forgiving going from higher power to lower power. This is what I use for hunting every time. 10x with something like that. And the frames per second, 240 is almost across the board what you want. 240 frames per second. If light gets low, 240 doesn't capture enough light. See, this is a trade-off with higher frames per second. The more you up it, the more light it takes to create a good picture. All right?
240 gives you the slow motion?
240 is what you see in 95% of what I release on YouTube. 240 frames per second, which is 8 times the speed of reality. Most cameras capture in 30 frames per second. That's basically what our eye sees at 30 frames per second. Some people in the history are total badasses, like Babe Ruth. He saw what they declared to be about 60 frames per second. When the 45 record was spinning in a circle, he could read it. He could read the record. So you got a portly man who drinks like a fish who can crack home runs. And the reason for that is Babe could watch that ball spin as it came in. That's why he made contact with it. He was this exceptional human on many fronts. Back to the scope though. When I set it for 240 frames per second, if light is drawing down, 120 is kind of what you have to go with. And that'll give you a clearer picture. So if dusk is coming and you're nailing rabbits at dusk, 120 is what you want. The last thing is to record pellet in flight. The trick to this is an even background. It is an absolute bear to try to find a pellet in a sea of sticks behind. And this kind of goes without saying, but my point is you don't need to have a sunny day or a cloudy day, so long as it's even behind. I've captured equally good footage with a brilliant blue sky or a foggy sky. What's more significant is do your best to put the sun behind you. If you put the sun behind you, that will reflect in the back of that pellet and send it right back at you. If the sun's in front of you, it's going to cause glare and oversensitivity of the camera so that it wants to dim it more. And the result of that is that it's harder to find the pellet in flight. So try to put the sun behind you. So if you're doing video reviews, it's very important to do all these things, and also don't start until about 3 p.m. And then it has to be perfect on one take before the sun sets at 5 p.m. But that's the long and the short of it. The shutter, I want to say it again, the shutter hold down at half. That's your secret right there. And it's got to be out of focus when you do it. Once you snap things into focus, it's all up to you. There's no more parallax, as I mentioned before. So just snap it into focus until you see it look good on the camera itself. It can be a bear to shoot with it running, because frequently on the older cameras like this one, when I hit record on it, I have to watch what the camera is recording. In other words, I lose a lot of light. Post-production, I'll bring this up. I can crank up the gamma, that kind of thing in post-production. But while I'm looking at it, it's kind of a bear. So it's somewhat difficult to try to shoot groups with these things with the light dimming down. The newer ones, if you purchase anything with like model numbers 100 and up, you're going to get one that gives you what you see here and records it over here. Now what I'm saying is, it doesn't show you what's being recorded. It shows you the true viewfinder that's on here, and it records it, and you can see that later on when you play it back. But what you get to continue to see is what the camera's actually seeing, not what it's recording, not what the finished product's going to be. Steve decided to use his eye rather than the camera. So he turned this knob right here, and by turning it, he released the swing on the camera. All right? So the elevation of the camera, nothing is thrown off except the swing of it. It comes back around, it's back on spot again. You tighten this back, you're golden again. But he wanted to look through his eye, take a shot, as I do too sometimes. If things are just a little bit wonky, or if your camera dies, or maybe you're just not in the mood for using your camera. You swing that around, you lock this down, now you're free to use your eye. Steve took a couple shots at 50 yards using his eye, and now he decides he wants to go back to his camera. He turned this knob again, which is right here, swung this around till he saw things kind of pop back into view there. Cranked it down. It's not perfect, but he cranked it down. And now he wants to go back to using it down range. But his reticle is fuzzy now. So he points it at the ground, holds it down halfway. It's fuzzy in the background because he was paralyzed at 50 yards or longer range. Points at the ground, fuzzy in the background. The camera's looking for something to focus on. It can't focus on the background because it's too damn fuzzy. It can try as hard as it wants and ain't gonna focus it. So it grabs the reticle instead. This was the problem people had. If your background's in focus and your reticle's not, it will prefer the background to your reticle. So you have to force it to not have a background to focus on, and then it's gonna grab the reticle instead. Make sense?
Yeah.
And that's the long and the short of it. He hooked me, by the way. Robert hooked me. We gotta wrap it up, I think. Yeah.